Welcome back. Rumors abound about a crisis of leadership within the Liberal Party. NDP leader Jack Layton hasn't missed the opportunity to highlight those perceived problems, and he's also the loudest political voice calling for the pullout of Canadian troops from Afghanistan. Here's part 2 of Randall Mark's interview with NDP leader Jack Layton.
You see there's a real weakness in the Liberal leadership at this moment?
Well, I think we haven't seen real leadership. I don't think sitting down on the job is leadership. I think you've got to have the courage of your convictions. The Liberals seem a little more concerned on preserving their own seats and jobs than they do about the jobs of their constituents. But, you know, we're going to take on Mr. Harper. We're going to stand up against him. We're ready to go to the voters when that opportunity comes. And we'll offer a very different vision. Not the one that Mr. Harper, with the support of Mr. Dion, is advancing, which is going to keep spreading the gap. We call it the prosperity gap. It'll keep us enmeshed in this George Bush war in Afghanistan.
You call it a George Bush war, and yet it's not just a George, it's a UN, it's a NATO-sanctioned war.
Well, if I may,
jump in on that.
Of course, as you know, it was George Bush who initiated the entire effort, and if there's any doubt about that, read Bob Woodward's book, Bush at War. It goes into great detail on what happened.
Is NATO tricked into coming in on this?
Well, I think what's happened is that NATO is failing on the job. Clearly, most NATO countries do not feel that the war fighting in the south that we've been drawn into is the right way to go in Afghanistan. That's why time after time they have said no to sending troops into that search and destroy mission. We've said that's the wrong direction for Canada.
So what is the right direction then? Is it to pull troops right out?
Yes. And
full withdrawal of troops?
Yes, and what we can do then, we will then have the credibility to be able to construct a comprehensive peace process.
But how can you construct a peace process if there's still chaos and women being raped all the time?
Well, what you have to do, of course, is you have to stop the direction that's taking us nowhere. There is no military victory or end in sight in the current path. And so for Canada to play the kind of catalytic role that most Canadians want us to play, to take us towards ceasefires, towards a peaceful resolution, where all the various combatants get to a peace table and begin to work on that very, very tough job. We've seen it in Northern Ireland. We know that Canadians could make this happen, but we have to withdraw from the current role that we're playing there now. Otherwise, we really wouldn't be able to play that credible catalytic role.
Yeah, but even the peace process, I'm thinking about this. I was speaking with General Romeo Dallaire the other day, and he was saying that in this situation in Afghanistan, he sees it as a justifiable, a responsibility to protect. And I mean, here's a person who has been in Rwanda, who knows these issues, and he's saying that Canada has a responsibility to protect people and not to partner with these extremists and try to build peace with them, because you can't. How do you respond to him that kind of statement?
Of course, I have a lot of respect for Romeo Dallaire, but I think what is very clear is there isn't anyone who thinks that ultimately we can defeat the insurgency. So basically what we're saying is it's perpetual war. And I don't think perpetual war is a solution, do you? I mean, you've got to at some point get off that train. And we believe a lot of Canadians feel that Canada has found itself very much in that ambit of the White House approach to foreign policy, and rather than our traditional independent voice. Malalai Joya, the young member of Parliament, who I've now met with several times, came to our convention, and we just spoke recently, and she said Canada needs to be an independent voice in this situation and play that important role. So I think we have to listen to the points of view of many people. We in the NDP have taken a clear stand. The Liberals got us into it. They were divided on the votes. They clearly can't show any leadership on this issue. So we'll pose the alternative and try to make it happen.
I want to turn the tables a little bit because and just talk about kind of a broader issue about how the NDP has a history of drawing upon faith traditions in its support of social and these kind of policies. I want you to talk a little bit about how does the NDP move forward and try to articulate its vision in a multi-faith kind of setting. Is the NDP a party that can appeal to religious voters?
Oh, I believe so. In fact, if you look at the basic values of most of the world's great religions, they come right back to the concept of fairness, to the concept of compassion, to concepts of equality, the pursuit of peace. We're big advocates for affordable housing so people aren't homeless. That concept comes directly from all the great religious traditions. And of course, we see a government now that wants to have nothing to do with providing a roof over people's heads. They want to leave people to their own devices. So I think there is a strength there. Our party has established a faith and politics commission under the leadership of people like Bill Blakey. And of course, Tommy Douglas himself, people often forget,
there's a deep history of faith
was
going on here.
Was a minister. And he talked about the values of the great religions.
So how is it that religion has somehow slided over into the seemingly on the right-hand side, and yet it has this huge history on the left? How did that happen?
Well, you know, there's ebbs and flows in politics and in the society we live in at all times. But if you look south of the border now, it's very interesting what's happening. Many of the religious organizations that for a while looked to George Bush perhaps as a more of a fundamentalist religious representative, they're turning away now. They're saying the kind of society we're building here is increasingly militaristic. It is increasingly at conflict with the values of whether it be Christianity or Islam or the great other religions we could be talking about, the concepts of some notion of equality. What you see is a growth of inequality and many, many people being left behind. And so I think there's a concept of the social justice beginning to move forward. And the voice for peace, as well as a real concern about environment. I think this is one of the most exciting things, is that some of those who've been involved in religious thinking and faith communities,
they've often kind of pushed the environment out as non-important.
And that's changed.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, very exciting, because I think it could become something that brings us all together, no matter what faith tradition might motivate an individual or a community, or whether it's a value system. These things have the potential to come together, I think, very much with our NDP vision of where the country should be going.